Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad Podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Heidi Fiedler. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by just telling me a little bit about yourself?
I am a writer, an editor, and I'm also a mom to a 7-year-old going on 8. I live with my husband, my son, and my mom in Massachusetts. And we've been here about 10 years, but it
Okay.
still feels like we are new to Massachusetts.
Okay. Where were you before you were in Massachusetts?
California, mostly. I grew up in California. So it's a big change for all of us. My mom was in California too, so she moved to Massachusetts and she's definitely still getting used to it too.
Yeah, that's great. So the first question I usually ask is, what is your definition of inclusion?
Yeah, I love this question, and I don't know if I'm totally qualified to answer it, but I was thinking my personal test for it right now is, does my son want to go to school? I am really trying to protect that because right now he does want to go to school.
Hmm.
And I think there's so many reasons why he might not want to go to school. And when everything is working and I know that everyone is welcoming him and doing everything they can to
Hmm.
honor what he needs and what he wants there, he does want to go. And to me that's a really good sign. That says it's inclusive and it's going to look different for every kid and every
Right.
family, how that
Yeah.
plays out in detail.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, but part of my story is I have a daughter. She's 22. She's diagnosed with cerebral palsy and epilepsy, so she uses a wheelchair. And growing up, I don't remember like hearing the word disability. I mean, I'm 47. We never heard the word autism at all. Obviously, when I was growing up, and just none of that stuff. So when she was born, found out at 3 months old she was having seizures, and then that kind of just opened up the whole, medical world, disability world to me, and had to kind of learn it on my own. Like growing up, did you have any exposure to like disability or any of that type of thing?
No, not at
Okay.
all. And our son is autistic,
Yep.
and during this whole journey, my husband has also realized he's autistic,
Okay.
although we adopted our son, so that's sort of coincidental. But
Yeah.
um, our our impression for both of us was like based on an after school special or something. Like
Hmm.
we had such a narrow stereotypical view of what it meant to be autistic or disabled in any
Hmm.
way. Um, I think I maybe wrote one paper in college that like referenced disability rights, but
Okay.
there was no like disability awareness or any kind of general education that was
Right.
happening around it. And it definitely felt like a you problem, not a me problem.
Right.
Like that's how it was set up. And so it's been a huge learning experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. That's very interesting. Now you're the third person I've talked to in a row where having somebody close to them diagnosed with like autism or ADHD, one of like the parents or somebody else close to them, like realized they had it also. So that's been interesting.
I think it's very common now.
Yeah.
In our case, it's a little more coincidental, but it's
Yeah.
like once you are reading about it,
Yep.
and the people that know, like they just know.
Right.
I mean, it's not like a maybe with my husband. It's like a, oh, this is like a piece we were really missing.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like it probably just goes back to like the awareness piece. It's like when you're gonna go buy a new car and you see this car you want, and all of a sudden you see the same car all over the place where you never saw it before. I think it's probably some of that, just since you're researching it and it's in front of mind, then other stuff becomes more obvious maybe.
Yeah, and we really thought like it was, if you were not sitting in a corner, like not wanting to be touched, not
Right.
rocking,
Yep.
like needing it to be a dark room, like then you weren't autistic, and
Right.
that's just like false.
Yeah. Or you weren't Rain Man from that movie. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
but I think there's a phrase that they use, like, if you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. Just the
Hmm.
whole, like, it's not the same for everybody, which is very true.
Yeah. Yeah. And I hope that people are more open to differences now. And I don't know if that's true. I sometimes think like I only know about this because of our
Right.
family. It could
Right.
have easily passed me by, and maybe the people in the market don't know about this, but I'm hoping that in
Yeah.
general people are becoming more aware.
Yeah. So does your son have an IEP in school?
He does. Yes, we just had a little check-in meeting.
Okay. How has that whole IEP process been for you guys?
We have an amazing school team, which we are extremely lucky to have. It has been, well, we had lived in a different school district
Okay.
before he started school, and we had a really bad experience with that school. They basically were like ready to write him off immediately.
Hmm.
And we worked with someone who, she's an advocate, but she does a bunch of other things with the autism community. And she was able to like basically tell us these towns are more autistic friendly than
Hmm.
others. And um, we chose, we bought this house based on her
Right.
advice of like this school district should be pretty autistic friendly, and they have been amazing.
That's all.
And it's still extremely stressful. Like I
Yeah.
cannot imagine doing all of this plus trying to convince people it's needed or it's
Yeah.
possible or whatever. We're doing so much work, and it's still like we're in the lucky camp
Right.
because we have so many
Yeah.
great people there.
Yeah. You kind of brought up a great point that I've been kind of thinking about, excuse me, more recently too, is just the whole, sounds like you guys figured out where might be a more autism friendly community and you move there. I mean, in our situation, my daughter, because of her needs, was sent to like a segregated classroom across town. I went to lunch there one time early on, and the kids were already like folding towels, and this is, we're talking like first or second grade, and I'm like, why are we folding towels already? I mean, why aren't they in math and reading class at this point? I mean, we haven't even really tried to get them to learn it. So
Mhm.
opened up the whole inclusion piece, and then we live in a town of about like 25,000 people, and there's not like anything really close by where she could be transported. So you kind of felt like we were stuck here, and then just trying to fight for inclusion her whole schooling. And then you look back and it's like, maybe we should have tried to find another place that was more inclusive and just move there to try to get that piece out. Because I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I would make families that are going through stuff and they're hitting walls or roadblocks. I mean, I feel like that's a great piece to talk about, because I mean, maybe it is better for your family if you can do it, to move someplace where it would be better for your child. So that's
I wish that was not the
yes,
choice that you
yes,
had to make.
yeah,
And I don't know how we could have possibly done it without this person giving us such
that's true.
specialized
Yep,
advice. We would have just been guessing
yep,
like anyone else. And there's so many changes too. Like
yes,
your child is always changing. The federal government is always changing. All these pieces are moving. So
right,
it's like trying to point yourself in the right direction is a
yes,
really big ask of
yeah,
yourself.
for sure. Yeah, that's also a great point. Because I mean, a lot of the struggle we had with the inclusion piece is just our definition of inclusion and the school's definition were not the same. Like, we wanted full inclusion, and their version was like, yes, she sees kids at lunchtime. So we had that difference, and just so much also that I've seen just depends on like the administration and their view on it. So it's like you're saying, you could move to a place where right now everything's going really smooth. Somebody else comes in and now it changes. So yeah, I mean, as a parent, you just have to give yourself some grace and make the best decision you can for your family at the time, and realize, yes, something might change and you have to revisit. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
for sure.
It's a huge new world too. I mean,
Yeah,
just entering school in general feels foreign, even though we've
right.
been in school. Like
Yeah,
it feels so different. And you're working with so many people.
Yes,
Like, I find that part really overwhelming, just communicating with all these people and keeping everyone in the loop, and, um, it's a big it's a big deal even when it's going well.
right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, our daughter, she had. I mean, the first IEP meeting I remember going to, it was right after my son's like kindergarten back to school conference, and you're just his was, parents, him, drop off your stuff, your supplies, talk to the teacher for 5 minutes, see you the first day, go to hers, and there's like 10 people there. And I was like, why is there 10 people here? Like, his was like us and the teacher. Why is there so many people? It's like, he should have told me ahead of time because I have no idea what's happening. So, yeah, it's crazy how many people are involved in trying to juggle everything. And if there's medical stuff too, then you're juggling the doctors and all that stuff. So it can get to be a lot for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you have in Minnesota these things called CPACs. It's like a parent group that
Okay.
works with the special ed director,
Yep.
and they have them, I think, for each district. And they're really like, I think there's like some institutional knowledge in them. Like,
Sure.
their parents might be with them for like 10 or 20 years, and then like the next group was coming through. And even if the special ed director is moving
Right.
on, like
Yep.
there's some overlap. And I have found it helpful to go to, they have like some in person and some Zooms. I just go to
Sure.
Zooms, but like go to those meetings and just hear. Partly, I usually take away how varied disability is in our
Hmm.
district, how varied the needs are, and the solutions. And um, it's been very educational to me, just like as a bystander, kind of to get that perspective.
Yeah. We call it Special Education Advisory Council in Minnesota, I think. Sounds similar. So I mean, early on, I kind of helped get that going in our district, and I mean, it is very beneficial. I mean, it was good to for sure be in front of the school district people and meeting other parents for sure. Yeah, that's one good way to do something like for sure. How does your son like any activities? Does he like what does he like? Sports, music, anything?
He says recess is his favorite right now.
Okay, that seems common, doesn't
Yeah, he's 7.
it?
He has trouble with the specials, like for
Okay,
music and library and PE. I think there's sort of like a tension. He wants to do it, but it's really overwhelming, and
for sure.
it's just harder to
Yeah,
be in a new space. There's a transition. There's all
yeah,
these pieces
yeah.
to it. But he has been going to specials. He's been in his general classroom. I think he's in there probably like 60 or 70% of the time right
Okay,
now. We had a period earlier this year where he was really, really struggling, and he wasn't in his classroom, I don't think, at all. He was in other rooms, and he was
sure.
barely in those rooms, and
Yeah,
it was a real spiral down. So we're happy to see him doing to feel more comfortable there and to be more engaged, but it feels very fragile always.
yeah. I mean that makes sense to me. Like you think often and just if we're having a good day, we're having a good day. It's not that doesn't mean it's going to be good here on out. Just kind of remember that. Or if you're having a bad day, there will be good days. And just yeah, it's I do understand the thinking about how fragile it is though, because yeah, it is. It can change, and you just gotta count your blessings when it's going well. So that makes sense.
Yeah, it's been tricky to, every kid deserves downtime and
Yeah,
rest, and like it's really hard to know what is actually re-energizing, what would actually feel like a break to
right.
him, and what's doable at school that's a
Sure.
real break for him.
Yeah.
And even at home, like it's hard for him to relax and rest, and so that's just something we're probably going to be struggling with for a while.
Yeah. Is he able to like tell you what he wants and stuff, or tell you what he needs and stuff?
Some, but not a lot. That
Okay.
part is a struggle, and I wish we could hear more from him about what feels good and
Right.
what doesn't.
Yeah.
Um, He really struggles with talking about anything that's unpleasant or
Sure.
like a little bit hard. Plus, he just has a lot of communication issues. Even if he felt emotionally ready to talk about those
Yeah.
things, it would be difficult to express it, I think. Um, but I know that the team there really wants him
Hmm.
to be feeling comfortable. And they also, like, I mean, when I was in school, I don't think anyone ever used the word regulation either. I don't think
No.
anyone talked about, like, were their kids regulated or not.
No.
They truly are not thinking this is a bad kid. They're
Yeah.
truly thinking he's dysregulated. And they get that his
Right.
dysregulation looks like super silly and super energetic, and they are like holding something in their minds that I think is really tricky to hold on to, and I
Right.
appreciate that.
Yeah. That is a great point too, though. I mean, I know that as a parent, sometimes you're like, "Oh crap, they're gonna kick him out because of his behavior." So it is, you kind of, like you're saying, you have to hear what the team is saying, and if recognize that they're like, "No, I mean, yes, he's doing, he has this behavior or this is happening, but that's not. We're not thinking he needs to like get kicked out or he's a bad kid. It's just we figure out how we can help him and get through that." So that's awesome that they're doing that for him.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know it, and I still have to, like,
Yeah.
remind myself in the moment all the
Right.
time.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, but it's also nice to be able to lean on their expertise,
Right.
and they've seen hundreds of kids.
Yep.
They have a sense of, like, what's possible, and
Yeah.
I know this one kid really, really well, but I don't know how it fits in with everything else.
Sure. For sure. Switching gears a little bit, why don't you talk about your writing and a little more about that? Like, what do you
Oh,
write about, or what's that about?
yeah, I've come from children's books. I've been
Okay.
a children's book writer and editor, and then in the last couple years, I've been writing a little bit about creativity and motherhood, and so had a couple essays that are about my son, um, and I feel like that's part of my work now.
Sure.
Still kind of figuring out how it all fits together, but um, it's definitely influenced me and, like, given me new ideas and new
Right.
things that I care about and wanna focus on and all of that.
So have you have like books so that you've written that have been published, or you help other people, or both?
Both, yeah,
Okay.
both. I have written, um, I don't know, a bunch of books that are out. And then I work with publishers to help them develop books, and then I work with writers one-on-one
Awesome.
to help them.
Have you? I mean, is that something that started in childhood? You like that was you liked writing, or how did that start?
Yeah, I was probably one of those people that was always getting, like, "You should be a writer, you're." But I wasn't really thinking about it as a career.
Sure.
Our family was very, like, doctor, teacher,
Hmm.
lawyer.
Yep.
Um, and I became a writer more through being an editor. I became an editor, and then there was, like, a lot of writing involved with that, so I kind of added that in and really
Sure.
enjoyed it, and, it was more like all those years of people saying, "You should be a writer." I was like, "I guess maybe I should."
Yeah.
It just took me a while to kind of admit it or accept
Yeah.
it.
For sure. Do you have any books you're working on personally then that you're kind of in the process of you writing to publish your own stuff?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
working on 3 picture books right now,
Okay.
drafting those, and then I've written a book about creativity and motherhood, and it went out on submission for a couple years, and it got really good feedback, but it did not sell. So I'm thinking this summer I might figure out self-publishing for just
Okay.
this one particular book.
Okay. Yeah. When you talk about creativity and motherhood, can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I know for me, like, I've always done creative things, but becoming a mom made me value that a lot more, and it also made me more ambitious with my ideas. I
Hmm.
wanted to create something more meaningful, something that felt more personal, um, and I think there's a lot of parallels between being creative and being a caregiver. And it sometimes we think like writing or whatever your creative practice is taking time and energy, and it does, but it also gives you energy and it helps you feel grounded. It's sort of like the only thing that's mine right now when so much is being given to my son, and I have to, put my personal preferences and needs aside all the time. It's really nice to have something that is all mine and I can make decisions on and see grow in my vision.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, like it's something you have a little bit of control over, like how much energy you put into it, or you can make. Yeah, that makes sense because, yeah, as a parent of a child with extra needs, it's a lot of the time is spent on meeting those needs, and can be going fine, like we said today. Tomorrow something comes up which you have to figure out, so it's just not. It's hard to keep something, and so if you have something creative you can work on, it gives you an outlet, gives you time and energy to focus on that. So yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah, I've been interviewing, I think I'm at 100 now, 100 creative mothers for my Substack. And it's been everyone from like across the spectrum of like, I just write a poem and put it in my journal to like, I'm a best-selling author, or like I'm a painter with pieces in galleries, everyone from like more private, aspiring artists to more established. And it's really like exciting and inspiring to see how many different ways they have found to be creative and how they found ways to keep going, even though they have less time and less energy. And you see over and over, like it really means something to them. It's very valuable.
That's interesting. So what is your are you one of those people that like wakes up every morning and writes for 15 minutes? Do you have like a routine of how are you creative every day, or?
No. I tend to write in little pockets of time. Sometimes it's like waiting for my son in the car line or something. Or maybe it's like 10 minutes, at lunchtime or something. They're little tiny bursts. But I'm always holding the idea in my mind and I'm kind of like working on it in the background. And I think part of the struggle or the thing that you have to make peace with at this stage of life is like, that's not super satisfying, but it's probably enough to make progress. And if you look for those opportunities, it's still really valuable.
Yeah, that's great. How have you found that many people to interview about it? Just on social media, or how do you connect?
Yeah, Substack is sort of its own like self-feeding community where a lot of people are looking to meet each other. But also, I look people up if I hear like an interview or I read something and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize they're a mom. I'll just like reach out to them cold and send them an invitation. And I would say like 90% of the people I've reached out to say yes, because it's exciting to be able to talk about, and it's something that you might not talk about with your friends or like really, I don't know. And also it's really cool to see it as a collection of voices and not just my personal experience, but to see everyone side by side. It feels like we are really doing something behind the scenes, even if other people don't notice.
So is it mostly just like you're talking like writing or scrapbooking or quilting, or is there like other? What would be like a non-traditional creative way that somebody you've come across?
One woman I interviewed, she does flowers, like she'll grow flowers on a farm, and then she does beautiful designs. Another one develops recipes. We have an acrobat, like a circus acrobat. Jewelry makers, like painters, all different kinds. And some are like maybe just dabbling like during nap time or whatever. And they're not like, I am a painter, but they're talking about how they are creative in their parenting, but also like just enjoying like doing Play-Doh with their kids. Like they recognize that those moments are feeding them too.
Yeah, that's a great point too. Just a reminder that we need to have those times in our something as in our lives too, just to have a little time to do something different to kind of escape the everyday stuff. So yeah, last year I did a lot of, I don't know if you call fishing creative, but I guess it kind of is. But I did a lot of fishing last summer, and that was just nice to recognize during the day, like, hey, I need to get up from my desk, go outside. We have a lake like 2 minutes from our house. Just go over there and fish for a few minutes, come back. But something that was different, got me out in nature, got me trying to figure out where the fish are to catch them. So it's something a little bit maybe out there, but similar-ish.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that you made that connection as a creative act. I think there's so much that people are doing that's creative that we don't really give ourselves
Sure.
credit for.
Right. Yeah, I didn't paint the Mona Lisa, so it's not creative. We have to be nicer on ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. We would miss it if we did not bring any of the creative skills that we have to our
Right,
lives.
for sure. How do you think we can use empathy to be more inclusive?
Mm. Well, one of my goals when I'm on that CPAC meeting or like talking with people in general is trying to nudge people toward the idea that um, we're doing a lot of work on our side as like an autism family or as a disabled family to connect with other people out in the world. And we need other people to connect with us and like be doing some of that work.
Right.
And I think a lot of that can come through the education that we did not get when we were kids. So sometimes that might be like a school visit where I think they had something last year where some Paralympics came,
Okay.
Olympians came with the blades on their legs and
Mm-hmm.
presentation. This year they have something called the Tournament of Books at my son's school, and it's like a bracket thing where you're like voting, do I like this book or that book? And the titles they chose were like so cool. Like it was a huge range of cultures. There were funny books, there were poetic books, there was like one book called More Than Words, which is like it features like an AAC device and Braille and all these different ways of communicating using scripts. They had another book that was called The Boy Who Said Wow, which is based on this true story where this autistic boy was in the audience at a Boston orchestra event, and it was like this huge moment where it was like quiet right when the orchestra finished and everyone was like holding their breath before they clapped, and a boy said wow and everyone was like that's so
Right.
so affirming and exciting, and they wrote this picture book about it. And like having those things integrated in where everyone in the school is going to read it, discuss it. It's not like my son has to raise his hand and be like, I'm autistic. Yep. Let me tell you about autism. It's just like people can see themselves in the books. They can connect about it. I was so excited to see that. And I feel like that has to build empathy.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't see how it couldn't.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. What is one tip you can share to help the listeners be more inclusive today? So there's something that anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
I would say read and listen and learn from disabled adults. There's a lot of amazing activists out there that are sharing their personal struggles and challenges. And I've found that really moving and inspiring, not in a disability porn way, but in a, this is how the world should be. Why are we not making the world more like this? And I think it's a perspective we don't have nearly enough of. And we have to be able to internalize that before we can think, oh, is this event inclusive? Or is this invitation inclusive? Or is this moment inclusive? We need way more understanding and details, like the nuances of what does it actually mean to walk into this room with cerebral palsy or autism or epilepsy or any number of things. Like I can't tell you because I haven't done that, but these people who have lived it can tell you, and it's really helpful to use them as resources.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't discussed?
No, I'm so glad you're leading this conversation, and I hope that people will feel like it's not like this giant it's not like this overwhelming project that you have to take on. It is more like
Right.
in the moments, talking with a real person in front of you when you're going to be able to connect, understand more, and actually make a difference and include someone in a way you might not have before.
Yeah. Thank you. Are you ready? Or how can everybody, what's the best way to connect with you?
I'm at helloheidifiedler.com, and you can find me on Substack. You can just Google Heidi Fiedler Substack, and I'm on Instagram at Heidi Fiedler.
Awesome. Ready for the last question?
Yes.
Do you like spam? Yes or no?
No.
No? I live in Austin, Minnesota, where they make spam and where the spam museum is located. So I've been asking all my guests just to see what the answer is.
I want to give it an X. That's how my son will be like a real
An X?
no. It's like, no.
No, yeah. It's funny because usually it's a strong yes or a strong no. There's no like middle ground, really. It's just, but it's a fast yes or no.
I'm honestly not even sure I tried it, so I probably shouldn't give it a strong no, but my initial instinct was no.
Yeah. No, that's all good. That's all good. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to be your 90th interview or
Yeah,
however long you've been doing this. That's amazing.
thanks. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.